suddenly there's this upsurge in like Arab talent being recognized, electronic track that has some smatterings of percussion that are more Arabic in style, and a guy who's talking on top of it with a Saudi accent. Nobody has ever heard anything like this before. Drums, if you don't get some of the rudimentary parts into your routine earlier, you struggle to have any form of expression deliver within the context of a 5-piece band. Not everybody wants to hear you just going crazy all the time. This was the town that you were from. This was the football team of these 6-7 towns. You support this team. You support another team. You get picked on at school. It's all about supporting what's there for you. One time it was almost like if you do a radio edit, it should be 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Now a radio edit is 1 minute and 30, 1 minute and 40 seconds. Almost not music anymore. You know, you can have an intro that's a minute and a half. Vinyl sales last year were higher than any year previously in the 2000s.
Welcome to The Loop. I am talking to an old friend, an old boss, an old work colleague. I'm talking to a venue owner, a marketing and an advertising veteran, a writer, a DJ, a producer, and a man with probably a few more hats since we parted company in 2008, 2009. Karim Miknas, welcome to The Loop.
Thank you. Thank you.
What is on the top of your project list now?
Right now, I would say certainly what we're doing in JJ's is a continuous evolution of where we were. So I don't know if you, I'm sure you remember the old venue.
Yes, I do.
On the other side of Adliya. We reached a point where it was, I would say, not only tired, but it became restrictive in terms of the location and in terms of the size. Yeah. And we were paying for rent for what used to be BJ's, and it was unutilized, and it was just basically storage, which is a real shame because it was a great venue. A lot of things were tested and tried over time and didn't really happen. So when I got stuck here, which I did get stuck here during COVID, they closed, they shut the airport, they shut all the flights, and I couldn't leave. So I started digging a bit deeper into JJ's and digging into the history of what we had done. And we took a decision that we shouldn't kind of end the project, that we should kind of reassess what it is, take out the theming more. You know? It was built by the Irish Pub Company back in the day in a warehouse in Ireland and then shipped to Bahrain and built as it is to be a themed space. So what I wanted to do is take out the Disneyland aspect of it and make it into a proper venue. And a place like JJ's, which was a proper venue, but to make it even more, more authentic, if you may, or more real. And then what we decided is, other than taking out the theming, how can we upgrade it? Because if you're going to move, you have an opportunity to kind of go in with a fine lens and say, okay, how can I look at the furniture? What can I do to improve it? What can I do to improve the decor? What is going to come with me? What is not going to go up? What are things that were up that were taken down for whatever reason that should be back up, What are things that may have been damaged that were put aside and never really repaired? So we went through this. It was kind of a very personal project, but at the same time, I realized that there's a big responsibility because it's 22 years this venue has been there. It's an institution for many people. It's a place where they met, they got married, they got divorced, they got, they had friends. All kinds of things have happened to people over the years. We've lost people, we've gained friends. So there was a big responsibility that what you do next needs to be really up there, and it should be almost immediately appreciated, or immediately people grab onto it and say, oh wow, this is great. So
no time to wait.
That started, we had to move in quite fast. It was Ramadan 1 month later. Ramadan only 1 month goes by very fast as well. So we were trying to catch up to the things that we didn't finish just before we did the soft opening. And then it was just one week after another, just snowballed. So we're still working on the project. It's still evolving. And at the moment, the big concentration is here in Terrace. So we called this room Terrace because it is a terrace, spelled phonetically,
Yeah.
of course. And there are a lot of setbacks here. I don't need to go through all the setbacks, but essentially, I took a decision that we're not going to have a retractable roof. It's not going to work. The power of the wind on this road scared the hell out of us. We had a close to a massive accident here due to the wind and a lot of stuff blowing off the frame. Everything was about to, and it could have been really, really a bad situation. So we talked to a lot of people who are in the neighborhood, and they said, this wind will always be there. Well, Bahrain is a very windy place. I live in Abraj al Lulu, I know, because it is windy. So once we took that decision, we knew that we had more of a fixed location. Okay, big windows that you can open. It gives you a bit of breathing room when the weather's nicer. Then we realized that we had a little warehouse. The sound was so reverberant in here. It was so loud. It was so sharp. It was so everything. So that's where our original conversation started, which was getting into kind of tuning systems, learning about it, because it's something I'm very passionate about, but also it helps the venue. It helps downstairs. It helps all the rooms. It helps the venue. We can have an entire show just talking about the sound system in JJ's and in Terrace and all the other rooms.
We get back to you.
Because it's a lot that happened. And it was in that time that I was stuck here that I had an opportunity to kind of go through all the equipment we had and say, all right, this is all junk, and this we're going to save. And the stuff that we're going to save, what are we going to do to make it fit in a better way? So we have speakers from the old Tarbouche. We have stuff from the old BJs. We have stuff from a lot of places and a lot of new things.
Yeah.
But basically, we had to create something really new out of all of this stuff. So this is where we are, and I'm glad that we are. We've reached where we have reached, but we haven't really. We have a long ways to go, and I want JJ's not to be a place that's sort of it's done. Let's just run it. It should continuously evolve, continuously offer more things to more people, to become, to take on that 22 years and make another 22 years on top, I hope.
Well, it looks great. This is sort of, as Liquid was back in the day, this is an innovation space. That's your hope for it?
I would say that it's a little bit, Liquid, we wanted to be so many things at the same time.
Yes.
So we had that little lounge, we had the bar, and we had the dance floor. Okay. And we could marry the three together, and we could create a night where it was just a big dance floor, the whole place. But I don't know if you remember, we had movies projected in the beginning, and we were just trying to do too many things because we had all these ideas, and we wanted to put everything in one place, and it was just it was a mishmash of all things. And over time, we started to strip it back. We started to say, okay, do we really need to have this? I don't know what they call them now. The globular ball thing that was in the entrance. The lava lamp.
The lava lamp.
Do we really need this thing, which is always burning out and burning the electricity and overheating? Do we really need to put movies on? Nobody's watching. The thing never stretched right. So we got away from all that, and we did tunings every single year, and every single year we would get something more out of it.
Yeah.
Out of that system. We had Martin Bonsoir here from the UK who came out with Marquee Audio. And he was because it's like a brief. You're sitting with him and he says, well, where were you and where do we want to go next year? And I say, well, now we have a space for a drum riser and we have this and we have that. Okay, can we get another pair of speakers in the back? Yeah, okay, we can. I'll find them. I'll find an amp and get the speakers. You do your thing, I'll do mine. So we were really open to these suggestions. Liquid was an open format space in a way. We were very difficult about the music policy. It wasn't any band that could play in there. And I think that helped because it helped to keep us focused. You know,
That was
it was
the best
house
part
music,
of it for me.
house music, house music,
Yeah.
house music. Initially more vocal driven because we wanted to get people to accept dance music.
Yeah.
Where everyone was listening to top 40. You know what you hear in the club, you hear it in the bar, you hear it in the car, you hear it on the radio,
Yeah.
you hear it in Al Jazeera, you hear it in Jawad's or whatever it was at the time.
And it wasn't good
and
enough.
we didn't want that. We
No.
were like, okay, maybe some of that music is appealing to people, but we need to do something that is clubby, that is culture, there's a culture.
Yeah.
Every time I'd go to the UK and come back, more records, more ideas, more connections. And
It was the only place I wanted to go, that's
oh,
for
thanks,
sure, for
thanks,
years.
thanks.
You remember me then, that was the only, seriously was.
Yeah, and you did engineering for us too.
A little bit, yeah. Every Monday night there was
Yeah,
the band, they used to be called La Movida, now they're called Liquid.
yeah,
We hope to be interviewing some of them soon.
yeah.
I caught up with Ahmed the other day.
Good guys,
So, yeah.
very good guys.
But that was the thing, it wasn't just about, it wasn't just a DJ factory, it wasn't just a place where we could hear, I won't say it's the latest, but it was people were innovating, they were developing stuff. It wasn't on a timeline, they were doing their own
Yeah.
thing. All around, we could hear it there. I, for one, was very grateful because it didn't cost much to hear some amazing people and amazing things. But we also had a band space
Yeah,
for Bahrain to
Yes.
use.
Yeah.
And we had the house band La Movida, and you, with your carefully tailored shouting, turned them from a bunch of stray musicians into an actual tight integrated band. But they're all doing well. They're all, I mean,
I still think they could have stretched themselves musically at the time, but
yeah.
look,
But they didn't
it was
stop
them.
once Liquid.
No, they
did.
didn't stop.
They didn't stop,
They,
to be
they
fair.
evolved the name of the band. They did a lot of other things. It started as the Latin Jazz Quartet,
Yeah.
and it was like only 4 guys. And then at one time we used to have a trombone, a sax, and a trumpet player with them,
Yeah.
jamming with them. So I think the most we ever had was maybe 11, 12 people playing at the same time. An acoustic guitarist, an electric guitarist. There was no place to put these guys. They just sat
On top of each
on the
other.
floor and just played. So there was a time in Liquid where we had 2 nights with DJ nights, and we had 4 nights, and even at one point 5 nights, band nights. But it just became too much for me. I didn't have time to have my own life.
Yeah.
And it comes to an end.
You were still at the agency during the day, weren't you?
Yeah, for the first 2-3 years, I was still in the agency.
Karim, you were young when you were into music. It's always been there for you. How did it all start? Let's take it
Probably
really way back.
at home. So like most people, my dad and my mom aspired to a better life
Yeah.
and worked for it, and enjoyed spending the money in their home.
Yeah.
And having their friends come over, and so there were these 2. I don't know the brand, to be honest, because I never saw the brand, but I remember that it was a 3-way speaker. We had a pair of them with Harman Kardon. In those days was probably more audiophile than it is now.
Yeah.
A preamp and a power amp with a cassette player and a turntable, and they had, compared to my collection now, it's a very humble collection, but
Yeah.
they had records. My mom always bought stuff when she was in Istanbul. My mom is Turkish, so she listens to a lot of Turkish music, both more classic stuff and more pop. So we always had Turkish music playing whenever she was listening. She's always singing when she's listening. Maybe she's not a vocalist, but she
Yeah.
enjoys music so much. And my dad was more Beatles than Elvis. There was always Beatles going on. There was all this other stuff. And there was a nightclub in the basement of the building. So
Which one?
inevitably, in the basement of the building where we lived in Beirut.
Ah.
So inevitably, this music and these sounds, when the door opened or whatever, you would hear it.
Yeah.
As a kid, you pick it up. And I don't know. I mean, I really enjoyed having the volume up
Yeah.
as a kid,
As you
running
do.
around the house, and it just felt like music, you know, was a great participant to anything that you were doing.
Yeah.
And then moving to Bahrain, probably music was more nostalgic for me because listening to someone like Fairuz would take me straight back to Lebanon and just you disappear. And that was the advent of the Walkman, which I would Karim would borrow from Dad, you know, when Dad's at work and listen to it riding a bike. And then, you know, eventually discovered, you know, my dad got me a little record player that opened. It wasn't a very, very good tool, but you could listen to things.
Yeah.
It had an RCA output. You could plug it into a little boombox. So you start to learn these things. So I start buying records. There was a shop in Bab al Bahrain. By that time, we had already moved here. I was, I think, around 10, 11 years old. Whatever allowance, collect, go. You know, I don't know what I'm buying because you can't listen to those records. But, you know, Deep Purple live in Japan, bring it on.
Yeah.
You know, White Snake, bring it on. So I started amassing a small collection of vinyl. And then one day when I was in school, the music teacher, Mr. Lundy, bless him, came in and he said, I have a student here from the high school who's a drummer and wants to teach drums. Is anybody in here interested? Of course, everybody's gone silent, you know. And I was like petrified, like, how do I do this? Is it even possible? Is it allowed? I said to the teacher, I want to tell Mr. Lundy that I'm interested. After they had left, like, running after him.
Yeah.
I said, Mr. Lundy, I'm really interested. I want to play the drums. So it was in the Music Institute here, just before it was just up the road. And Tim Murphy from Bahrain School in those days had an incredible one-sided toms, black Ludwig drum kit. You know, wow. Ludwig. As a kid, you just get blown away by anything.
Yeah.
And he was a really good drummer. And I had lessons with him for 2 years. We were in Music Institute, then we moved to Bahrain School. He got a room there. And I completely sucked from the beginning. I couldn't even hit a whole note, just a ta, you know, ta, ta. And eventually it got easier. It got not easier, but it got more familiar. And I started to feel like, this is my thing. And I tried piano and guitar before and miserably failed in those.
Oh.
I just don't really have a melodic ability. I have a melodic ear, but I don't have a melodic ability.